Good evening, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Daily Motion. This is Rich again, back for your second video blog of the day for Thursday, February 5th, 2015, around 5:29 p.m. in Belleville, Massachusetts. Sun went down. We had about an inch or two of snow today, but the sun came out, but everybody had to shovel the driveways and walkways, and it was icy. And tonight's going to go down to below zero, and tomorrow it's supposed to be only 15 to 20 and windy. And beginning Saturday starts a 4-day snow event. This is not going to be a blockbuster snowstorm, but out of system after system after system after system, some places in southern New England could get 8 to as much as 16 inches of snow. I am a Brockton guy. That means Julie Brockton. I wish I could be in Orlando, Florida, where she lives right now. Some news to report. The Boston Red Sox have re-signed pitcher Wade Miley to a 3-year contract extension worth $19.75 million. The Detroit Tigers designated hitter Victor Martinez has a torn left meniscus in his knee. He's going to be out indefinitely. He needs surgery, so that's a big blow to the Tigers' offense. And also, it's official. The Orlando Magic gave Coach Jacques Vaughn his walking papers. In the words of Vince McMahon, "You're fired!" And that's about it on that. The next subject is about ESPN Sports Center. ESPN Sports Center is the flagship show of ESPN. It's been around since 1979 when ESPN was launched, and it's ESPN Sports Centers on multiple times a day on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPN News. The first program on ESPN was Sports Center on September 7th, 1979. The first anchors was George Grandy, who became the Cincinnati Reds play-by-play announcer, and also another one was Lee Leonard. And usually, for the first few years, Sports Center was mainly highlights of sports shows and stuff, and it was only a half hour, and ESPN had Sports Centers at 7 p.m., 11 p.m., 2:30 in the morning, and they had one around 8:30 in the morning for about several years and stuff. It was mainly highlights of sporting events that ESPN could get the rights to. Usually they showed a lot of highlights of New York teams, Boston teams, Connecticut teams, but eventually they added so they get all the sports teams from major college football, basketball, NHL, NBA, hockey, basketball, etc., etc., and the highlights were pretty good. And over time, ESPN's had anchors like Greg Gumbel and Chris Berman and Gail Gardner, Bob Lee, Tom Mees. They were the principal anchors of Sports Center during the early years. Eventually, Sports Center added like color analysts for the sports for that they covered, like college basketball, college football, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and others, and they would do analysts of the top games and stuff like that. I think around the mid-'80s they added more sports centers during the daytime and stuff, and Sunday nights they expanded it to 1 hour, and usually they would have like a Sunday conversation on Sports Center where they would have a major sports athlete or sports star or a sports owner have a sit-down interview, which was a long segment of the ESPN. Gradually, by like the early 1990s, Sports Center became really a big deal and stuff like that, and they expanded the nightly Sports Center from 7 p.m. They expanded it to like to 6:30 to 7:30. It was an hour, and usually hosting that was Charlie Steiner and Linda Cohn, and they would have like a featured story during the program, the top sports story of the day, and at night usually the main anchors for ESPN Sports Center were like Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick, and they nicknamed the Sports Center the Big Show. Not the professional wrestler, but the Big Show. And that's when Sports Center was at its peak, when it was when Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick hosted the Big Show. Also, they added more anchors like Craig Kilborn and Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen and stuff. And they started to put ESPN Sports Center in the mornings. And they would show maybe one live Sports Center in the mornings. Then they would repeat it for about 6, 7, 8 hours in a row. And it would at first was 30 minutes, but they expanded it to an hour. And they've been doing that ever since. They used to have Sports Centers 30 minutes, but they expanded it to an hour. And they added more anchors over the years, like Chris McKendry, Bob Stevens, Sarah Walsh, Hannah Storm, Kevin Nagande, David Lloyd, Jane McCarthy, Lindsay Zaniak, Michelle Bonner, and so many others. Now Sports Center is basically, it takes up most of ESPN's day. I think they run about like 13 straight hours Sports Center. They have a Sports Center set in Los Angeles. And usually the format of Sports Center is usually an hour long. Sometimes during that hour for the Sports Center, now they have like the top sports stories of the day, and then they have highlights, and then they have analysts talking about what sport, if it's Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA. They would have like maybe Tim Kirchen or Buster Olney as the baseball insiders for as those top baseball story. Or if it's the NFL, they have Chris Borstenson or Adam Scheffler, or they have Herm Edwards, and they have discussion and stuff. And also they might have sports interviews with a top sports star and stuff like that. And sometimes they kind of repeat the same segments for the next hour of that Sports Center and as well. Usually the anchors host a certain Sports Center for maybe 2 to 4 hour blocks at a time. And usually the end of each Sports Center they have the top 10 plays of the day, and sometimes they have the top 10 not so great plays of the days or the weeks. And Sports Center now has become more and more like analyst stuff and like that, and more kind of entertainment with the interviews than highlights, which it's 50-50. I like the old Sports Center when they showed the more highlights and less analysts. And Sports Center has never been challenged as the number one show for sports highlights and news. Other networks try to do it, like CNN had it for many years, like Sports Tonight with Nick Charles and Frank Hickman, but that lasted so many years, but it couldn't beat ESPN Sports Center. Fox Sports Net had Fox Sports News and the National Sports Report. That never beat them. And Fox Sports 1 now has Fox Sports Live, but that has never beaten ESPN Sports Center at all, even though they kind of have a similar format with highlights and an analyst, but it's like a panel of sports stars for Fox Sports Live and stuff like that. And ESPN has a famous thing for their theme song. This used to be it, do-do-do. That's one of the famous ones of all time for sports themes, that jingle. And I watch Sports Center a lot. It's pretty good, but I like the old one better, with like all highlights and stuff and little analysts. And the feature stories sometimes get too much and stuff all the time. They used to have it on Sundays a lot, but I think to do more and more of these features just for ratings. And that's about it on that. I'll be back later. Facebook friends, YouTube followers, Twitter followers, and Daily Motion followers for my last video blog about the designated hitter history in the American League and why the National League will never allow it. Bye-bye.